Beautiful. Let's start. Instead of an agenda, I put this mission statement. I'm going to try to spend as much time as possible inside SolidWorks, not on PowerPoints. I don't want to waste your time in any way. So I want you to think about repetitive tasks that you do over and over and over, especially in the part environment, not an assembly right now. So let's think about parts, things that you do, and it's more than just one feature, right? It might be adding points in a sketch, dimensioning, changing dimensions, making another sketch, doing an extrusion, adding something to the extrusion, and so on and so forth. Kind of clusters of work, if you want, or maybe something that can be called more like a meta feature, mega feature, if you want. Multiple things that are being combined together that would have to be redone over and over and over. So if one of the reasons probably you are here is because you encountered this type of problems already. So I'm going to try to get you to think a certain way when you encounter this type of repetitive, time-consuming, boring workflows. How can I employ SolidWorks as my apprentice to do all this work for me? So I'm going to teach SolidWorks how to do that. That's going to be his apprenticeship. I hope you don't mind if I call SolidWorks a he. And then simply ask him to change a couple of parameters and get the job done, right? So we'll see what type of functionality we have available for that. I'm going to focus on this variable pattern tool. We're going to explore, I'm going to be very frank with you, we're going to explore not only the pros, but also the cons, a lack of functionality, workarounds, and also a list of improvements that you can vote on. Maybe at the end of this webinar, you're going to take 5 minutes, vote on those improvements, enhancement requests, and get SolidWorks to drastically increase the functionality of this tool. Okay, so that's the plan. For those of you who did not have a chance to spend time with me, my name is Alin Vergatu. I work for the Canadian VAR, a value-added reseller, Javelin Technologies. We are not focused only on SolidWorks. SolidWorks is our the thing that we are better known out there, but think about us as your partners. We are very curious, and we care very much about your business, about your challenges. And we like to learn from those challenges and come back with value-added solutions. I'm very proud to share with you the news that the SolidWorks User Group Network voted me as the SolidWorks Application Engineer of the Year for last year. This has been probably the best piece of news I have I received on the month of February. So thank you very much for those of you who are part of that decision. That also allowed me to add this to this slide, because one point that I want to make is that we at Javelin are very much focused on as being part of the SolidWorks community. So we learn a lot from users, and we try to give as much or even more back to the community. It's this cycle of continuously learning. You can see here I can continue to brag about how many presentations I'm doing and things like that. Professionally, the last statement that you see here is what I'm doing nowadays. So people like you, and I can recognize quite a few names here. Thank you for joining. People like you would have a certain goal in mind. Let's say double the productivity in the next 12 months, or a certain challenge. You find out this takes a long time, or it stops you from getting the job done. And you would reach to Javelin, and Javelin would come to me or my colleagues to enable me to spend time with you. And the first thing you're going to do, you're going to teach me about how you are using SolidWorks and other products that we sell, what type of challenges you have encountered when you apply your current workflow. I'm going to learn all that, and together we're going to put our minds to find a solution, right? And that's actually the reason why this presentation exists. I'm going to take something that I found as a challenge from one of my favorite customers, and I'm going to present a couple of solutions. And as part of this presentation, we're gonna dissect this magic tool, the variable pattern. And we have lots of customers of Javelin. You can see here, I think we're close to 6,000 now. And when I say customers, I'm not talking individual users, as companies. I'm very privileged that you guys are inviting me to in your companies, and you share with me your amazing products. It's, as you can imagine, this is really the dream job for somebody like me, to be able to see all the amazing innovation that goes in worldwide, not only in Canada. So thank you for that. For the Canadian users, the Canadian clients of Javelin, I'm just gonna say, just be aware that you are privileged in a way, especially if you live, let's say, kind of in a central Canada, anywhere from maybe Quebec all the way to, let's say, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta. Just because we have qualified application engineers that can pick up the phone very early in the morning and also very late at night. So kind of like 13 or 14 hours support every day. Okay, so this was the mission statement, right? Remember, let's start, go past the introduction and let's start the discussion. Sorry, my mouse just moved the presentation forward. So let's take a look at the variable pattern. And the reason I picked it up as, and I use the word magical, is the fact that this is the only pattern that accepts not only features as part of the definition, but also sketches, axes, reference points, planes. I have to see what other things. I don't think you can do coordinate systems, but isn't this crazy? The ability to pattern planes, the ability to pattern sketches, the ability to pattern axes. It's pretty fantastic. And I'll give you an example from one of the training courses that you might have already attended with us, or you might plan to attend. It's the Advanced Update course for the 2020 or 2021. So if you're looking at this sole, right, it looks like, think about, I don't know, soccer shoe or something like that. Notice it has all these spikes. And to create even a spike, it's time consuming. Okay, so allow me to delete this. Actually, let's suppress this variable pattern. Right, so let's take a look at how this spike was created. The first thing I'm gonna mention, let me just increase the image quality so you guys don't see this polygonal edges. The first thing I want you guys to notice is the fact that the sole itself, it's a complex 3D surface. It's not planar in any way. It's pretty complex. So how would you define even one spike? Let's take a look. The first thing I'm going to do is define a point. And this point is actually inside the 3D sketch. Now, how you define it? First of all, it has to be coincident to the surface, right? So that's the first thing, has to be on the surface. Second, I might want to put 2 dimensions or find other ways to define its location. In this case, I'm simply using 2 dimensions. The first tip that I can give you is whenever you use dimensions or you create dimensions that will be used in patterns or in other features later on, it's a good idea to give them names. So for example, if I double click on this dimension, notice it's called exposition, right? I hope you guys know that you can make the dimension names visible. So you can see right here, I can press this little button and the dimension names appear right away. So it's making things much more clear for anybody who's going to use this dimension later on. So right now I define just the one position for the spike. Well, what do I want to do later on? Well, imagine I want to put another spike here. So instead of 16, maybe I'm going to go to 50. So it's going to move the next spike here, right? And then the next spike, instead of 23, it might go to, I don't know, 60, right? So it's going to put the point here. So this is going to be, imagine the center location for the spike. Allow me to cancel this change. So that's the first thing we did. We put the point somewhere on the sol. The next thing I want to do, since I plan to create a spike as elliptical draft emboss feature, let's create a plane first of all. So onto which I'm going to draw my ellipse. So you can see this plane, if you're looking at its definition, is actually going through the point that I created before, and is tangent to the face of the sol. So very simple definition. Now imagine what I need to do in order to create the spike. I need to use the plane. I'm going to draw an ellipse on it. I also added 2 dimensions here that are important. Actually, it has several dimensions, but these ones I would like to be able to change. That's why I named them. One is called angle, one is called length. So if I turn on the instant 2D, which a tool many of you might use even without being aware of, let's see if I can modify this. Yeah, looks like in this case it doesn't allow me. So yeah, let's imagine this is going to be, instead of 65, it's going to be 90 degrees. All right, so I do a rebuild, and that goes to 90. Oh yeah, let's go to the sketch. Sorry, for instance, 2D to work, you need a sketch environment, right? So you can see I can change this any way I want, and also I can change this any way I want, right? I can make it bigger or smaller. So that's the idea behind what I plan to do here. So let me roll back the 2 changes, and then I'm just going to use things like fillet maybe here, and some cutouts on the top. Now think about my apprentice, Mr. SolidWorks. Okay, Mr. SolidWorks, the next one that you're going to put is here. So you need to put a point, you need to put a plane, you need to draw the ellipse, you need to extrude it with a draft, and you need to do the other things, right? So for example, one thing that I'm going to change for sure are going to be these 2 dimensions. So maybe here, instead of, I'm going to keep 16, sorry, I'm going to keep the 23, but this is going to turn into 50, 60 or something like that. Let's hope I'm not getting out of here. And the angle, let's say it's going to be the other way around. So instead of being 65, I also have to make sure that I know in what direction this changes. Let's go to 50 first of all. I want to see how this goes. Yeah, so 50, looks like we need to go the opposite way. Okay, so this might be a bit too much, 60. Let's go to 55, right? And obviously you're going to change the angle. And then let's do it again, right? Here and here and here and here and all over the place. So instead of doing all this work, one thing that I'm going to do is creating a pattern. So SolidWorks saw all the work that I did with all these things, right? So these were the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things that I need to pattern. Well, what do I need to change? Just 3 dimensions or 4 dimensions. Okay, so let's find a variable pattern, and let's see how this works. What features do I want to pattern? Well, I want to pattern this guy, I want to pattern this guy, and I want to pattern this guy. Even though I selected faces, notice SolidWorks actually listed features here. So if I expand the tree, you can see the 3 features that got patterned. But this is the beauty of the variable pattern, the ability to allow me to pattern also underlining reference geometry like this plane and this sketch, right? So I want this to be patterned. The other cool thing that this variable pattern allows me to do is to create a pattern table. So very quickly, I can add almost like a mini design table. If you think of that, you can select the dimensions. So maybe I'm going to select this X position, the Y position, the length of the spike, and the angle, right? So if let's move this maybe somewhere here so you guys can see all these things that I selected there. So now I can change them, right? The first thing it shows me is that the seed, which is instance 0, has these dimensions. Let's add one more instance. So instead of 23, I think we're going to keep it on the X direction at 23. The first one, let's say it's going to be, I don't know, I think we experimented with 55, right? Let's keep the length the same. And for the angle, let's go, I don't know, 35 maybe. We'll see if that makes sense or not. Let's do an update preview. Oh, looks like it's going actually pretty bad. So what's the complementary of that, right? It'll be something like 155. Am I correct in doing that? Let's do an update preview and see. Nope. I think we need to add a bit more than that. So let's try 185. I don't know. You guys can see that I wasn't really good at a geometry before. So 180 minus 25, I think. Correct? 165? I don't know. Okay, I'm really bad at this. I'm just gonna add numbers there until we get something. So let's say 135 or something like that. So you can see the result. So if I click OK right now, and I click OK, I just got the 2 spikes. What if I want to put a lot of spikes? Okay, let's try that. So let's edit this feature. Just wanted actually to show you another cool thing. If I go to spreadsheet, I can actually write all these values much easier instead of me wasting the time trying to figure out the angles. I can put here equations, I can do all kinds of things, right? So you can see here I have instance 0, and I can add some other instances in here, right? So for the x direction, x dimension, y dimension, angle, and the length. Maybe I want to have some spikes that are longer, some spikes that are shorter with different angles, okay? So wouldn't it be nice to be able to import this Excel spreadsheet directly in the variable pattern? Let's give it a try. So I'm gonna edit this feature, and I'm gonna edit the pattern table. And notice here I have the option to import from Excel. Okay, so let's import this table. And let's see what we're gonna get once all those values are gonna be inserted inside the variable pattern definition, or whatever is called here, the pattern table. So you can see all those values are listed here. Let me hit update preview so we can take a look at how the preview is gonna look like. Right, so you can see it worked pretty well. I can see the 24 ones, we can see the 18 ones, they are there. The other cool thing is that if you select a cell, notice it highlights the graphic preview. So I'm gonna say that's pretty nice. For example, if I want to change this, I know exactly which one it is, right? So very valuable. Okay, let's click OK and click OK again. By the way, one thing that I also need to point out, and allow me to edit this one more time. If you want to keep the colors that you assign to faces, to features, things like that, you have to check this option here, propagate visual properties. So the colors are going to be propagated once you create the pattern. Now, what are the other advantages? First of all, one big advantage, I think it's very clear. Instead of me spending 1 hour, maybe not an hour, but half an hour to create a point and a point and a point and a point and a plane and a plane and a plane and extrusion and all those other things, I was able to do it in what, 30 seconds, something like that. The other crazy thing, which I really love, is the fact that each instance is actually listed in the tree. This is the only pattern that has this functionality. So we can already think about an enhancement request for all the other crazy patterns that we have in SOLIDWORKS, even things as simple as linear patterns. Wouldn't be a great idea to have access to each instance in the tree? I think we would love that. Why is that? Well, what about if I want to suppress something without having to edit the pattern? So let's say I'm looking at this. Notice when I click on it, it actually highlights the instance in the tree. Isn't that amazing? So if I want, I can suppress it. Now I have to be careful when I hit suppress. Do I suppress the pattern or do I suppress the instance? So let me hit suppress from the graphic area and see what happens. Looks like if you do that from the graphic area, it thinks that you selected a pattern, right? Okay, let's try to do the same thing from the feature manager tree. So I'm unsuppressing that pattern. And let's pick up, I think it was, I don't know, which one was that? Let's see again. It was instance 6, right? So notice here I have the suppress button also. Let's see the result. There you go. It got suppressed, but it's not deleted. It's not like I removed that line in the pattern table. So let's edit the pattern and take a look to see how that is being captured. If I go to edit pattern table, you can see how here under instances to skip, this is the skipped instance. Isn't this beautiful? I think it's a very elegant way to address edits, quick edits, right? What else can I do? So this is not everything. What if I want to actually delete a line from the table? Like I know for sure I'm not gonna have that spike there. So I can select it. Let's see which one is this, number 8. I can delete it from here. This is the equivalent of deleting the line from the table. So that line is gonna disappear. The other thing that I like about the variable pattern is there are no relationship between instances. You can delete one without impacting any of the other ones. I'm gonna say that's a big plus. And now for the biggest thing, the thing that I like the most is the fact that I can double click on any of these instances. Let's say instance number 9, right? You can see it shows me the length of the spike, it shows me the angle, it shows me the location from here and the location from there. So maybe I want to bring this a little bit closer to the left. Let me try even with instant 3Ds to see if I can do that. So let's say this is going to become 64. That would be interesting if it can move it a little bit closer that way. Okay, what about the angle? By the way, you guys know what instant 3D does is that instead of me typing the values, I'm kind of dragging those things. Let me turn this off and make sure I'm not confusing anybody. Let's go here to 0 degree. Okay. And let's make it big. Let's make it 30. Let's see what happens. Wow. Well, I'm pretty sure I wouldn't like to have such a such a spike, but this is crazy. Like I have one 3D sketch, one plane, and 3 more features, and I'm able to work with them like that. Let's do one more test. I'm gonna take one of these spikes and put it in an impossible position. Okay, so let's edit the pattern one more time. And you know what? Let's simplify this. I don't want you guys to wait too long for rebuilding this. So let's keep pretty much everything. Let's leave only these 3. Okay, but the last one, I'm going to put it so far away. So instead of 66, let's go to 120. So I know that's going to be way outside. Let's see if it's going to allow me actually to type 120 here. Yeah. Okay, so 120, sorry, on the Y position. Okay, so this is really far away. Let's see if that works. What type of error, if any, are you getting? So notice that SOLIDWORKS actually was able to complete the pattern. It gives you a warning here, and it shows you the instance that is not possible to create the geometry for. So if I double click on this, let's see, would I be able to see its dimensions? No. So unfortunately, oh yeah. Is this so? This is 66. That's not the one, right? Yeah, so the dimensions are not actually available, unfortunately. That might be one thing that, again, you can write it as an enhancement request. So even if there is a failed instance, and you can see here is being failed, looks like SOLIDWORKS automatically skipped it. So it put a skip, it made a decision for you for this to be skipped. So what you need to do is to bring it back in position. Let's say this is going to be 40 here, and try to see if this is going to allow me to unskip it. Looks like I'm still, what did I say? 40 millimeter. Okay. So let's see if that would work. If I can unskip, it looks like the first thing I need to do is probably to attempt to update the preview, or just click OK and try to compute it. So let's see. Yeah, and now it appeared. So a little bit of quirkiness here is not 100% intuitive. Just don't give up and report all the problems like this to your value-added reseller. So I'm going to qualify this more like a bug, not necessarily an enhancement request. Okay. So you saw a first example for using variable patterns. Now let's try another one. And this one came because of the amazing people that work for Earthscape Play. So I had the opportunity to work with many engineers and designers from there. David is the one who actually came with the challenge. So just want to give you an idea about Earthscape Play. They are doing this amazing playgrounds. And if you're looking at, I hope you can see this video directly from their website, the landing page. Notice all the wood, all the natural materials that are part of this amazing playgrounds. I think I should take a vacation and visit all the ones that are public in North America, along with my son, as he still can fit in these playgrounds. So you can see they're pretty cool. They have wood. They also have other natural material like this rope, right, to create these nets. And one of the challenge when you design a net like this is getting the shape right for many reasons, for marketing, for manufacturing, for simulation, for many reasons you want to get it right. So let's take a look at the case study that we're going to cover next. First of all, let's take a look also at the time. Looks like we are kind of half in the middle of the webinar. We're good on time. So remember what we said, we're going to treat SOLIDWORKS as an apprentice. So what you see on the left is the job done by a person who doesn't have a helper, who doesn't have an apprentice. Each and every one of these ropes is created manually, one at a time. While here, we told SOLIDWORKS how to build one of them, and then we use the variable pattern. You might say, okay, so what is so spectacular about this? Well, there are some limitations. So now we're going to talk about limitations, and we're going to talk about workarounds. Okay, so let's try to cover that before we go to lessons learned. For example, this is I'm just going to put them side by side, the two solutions for this problem. You can see how long this is. If I'm looking in the feature manager, it's pretty long versus how short this one is. Okay, so let's take a look. First of all, how would you define the shape for a net like that? So in this case, I just use a surface. I use the boundary surface. You can use other type of surfaces just to give me an idea about the space and the shape that the rope is gonna have. The other cool thing that I did here, I created a little sketch. Allow me to turn on Instant 3D again, which allows me to quickly manipulate the size and also the orientation of the various elements of this of the final net. Okay, maybe I don't know. I'm gonna move. Let's see what other things that I was playing here, really trying to make things as complicated as possible. So it's going to be easy for us to find all the problems that might be in here. And then I took advantage of the fact that each surface in SOLIDWORKS, each face, either of a solid body or surface body in SOLIDWORKS is exactly like a piece of fabric. So if you're looking at my shirt, hopefully the video is clear. Is made out of what? Of threads, right? Going in normal direction to each other. So a tool that will display those threads of a face is called the face curves in SOLIDWORKS, right? So if I click on this and click on this face, it's going to give me the natural curves. So we call this the UV curves of the face, and you can increase the number of elements of the mesh in both directions as much as you want. Right? Now, this is what. Let's actually, you know, let's put all those face curves on here. So a couple of tech tips. Number one, if you start the face curve command directly inside the part without creating a sketch first, right? So let's say this is going to be my face and I click OK. SOLIDWORKS is going to create individual sketches for each and every one of the curves, which sometimes it's useful, many times it's counterproductive. So this is the first thing that is worth keeping in mind. Okay, so let me undo this. If you want to keep all those sketches inside, all those curves inside one sketch, just create a 3D sketch first, and then start the the face curves command. So now you can see how all of them are part of one 3D sketch. So it's a bit easier to get the job done. So that's one way to do it. The problem we face, we cannot really specify the spacing between the curves. It's kind of, we use SOLIDWORKS internal algorithms to define the mesh. Okay, good. What else can we do? So obviously this doesn't work for us. Let's try something else. What if I define a bunch of points, individual? Right now they have dimensions. If I really care about them being equally spaced, I can use the segment tool. I can use a few other tools. So I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with that. So for example, the segment tool, let's say I have a line or I have an arc. Let's pick up an arc here, or I have a spline. If you use the segment tool, you can specify how many points you want to put on one entity. Let's say, I don't know, 8 points. Right, so you can see it's going to place them equally spaced. Also, relation-wise, it's going to put a nice little relation there called equal equidistant. So right now, if I fix this end and I drag the other end, you can see how the points maintain the distance between them. It's even nicer than that. If I delete one of the points, the other ones are respacing themselves to maintain that equidistance. Or if I want to add extra points, I can right-click on the equidistant relation and go to edit segment points. So now instead of 7, I'm going to have 77. Hopefully it's not going to crash SOLIDWORKS. But as you can see, it worked fine, right? And it works, as I mentioned, with splines. It works with, let's try only 10. It works with arcs, pretty much with anything that you can draw as a sketch entity. It's interesting, if you're looking at this one, notice how on the spline, this is a spline point. Okay, so don't get confused. This is not part of the new points that I created. It's just the spline point that the spline goes through. So you know, let's delete that point and see what happens. Right, so you can see how the other points maintain their distance between themselves. So it worked fine. My point is that you most likely might want to control this with dimensions. So in this case, I simply use dimensions like that. There are a few other ways to do it. Don't get too hung on the way this is being dimensioned. Can be done better. And then let's make this visible and maybe change the color of this sketch. So, it's already purple. Okay. Now I would like to put a point, face curve through each and every one of these points. And now is the time to call Mr. SOLIDWORKS here so he can see me working to understand what's going to be next, right? Okay, so face curve. I'm going to select the face and I'm going to select the point through which the curve is going to go. Notice when I do that, it switches automatically to position here. And there are two pairs of curves. One is this one, which is pretty much, it's kind of hard to see because it's cyan on cyan. So this is the direction. And you have the pink one, which is this one, right? So I need only the pink one to create this. And you can see this gets created. And this is pretty much what I did down the road. So allow me to reveal the other sketches that were created this way, right? All these ones in this direction. And in the horizontal direction, a few others. Right, so all this are the lines. What's next? Well, you take each and every one of these sketches and use it in a sweep. One cool thing about sweeps, I hope you guys know, if you just need a circular profile that is centered on those paths, you can simply specify its diameter, let's say 50 millimeter. So if I click OK, now this is my rope. And Do that over and over and over for all the other ones, right? So let's go to the end of this tree and see the end result. Actually, it's interesting. Looks like I have a bunch of body here that when we change values, by the way, remember we changed values initially. Looks like this is not a very robust technique. Doesn't work very well. So let me reload this. We already see that the manual process can give you in the end the job done. So if you see here, the job is done. But then if you try to revise this, it's very unstable. You cannot really get a good, stable result. And also it's not easy to modify. Imagine if I want to add, maybe instead of 500 between them, I would like to have this 400 and add a few others at the end. Lots of work, right? Hopefully I already linked the values, so I change once and all of them are changing. And then again, repeat the whole thing manual from scratch. So let's come up with a different solution. I'm just going to suppress all these things that I have here. And let's come up with a different approach. I'm going to build only one of this. So let's go over here and start a 3D sketch and put a point on this edge. Okay. Let's control it with a dimension. So I'm just going to get the shortest dimension between these 2 points. Let's call this, I don't know, 500, like we had it before. And let's name this dimension. I'm going to call it VER from vertical. So because this is going to define the location of the vertical elements. Okay. Now we have a name for that thing. Next. So by the way, I created this point and I want SOLIDWORKS to pay attention to this. So Mr. SOLIDWORKS, come and watch. You see, that's step number 1. You do one sketch with one point. And let's call this vertical path for my sweep feature. Okay, good. So this is the one. Let's create now a guide curve that's going to go through this point. So select the face, select the point, pick only the pink one, and click OK. And actually, this should be vertical position, not path, right? Because here I simply define the position. And this is going to be the vertical path. Okay, so let's name this vertical path. What else? Let's create also the horizontal ones. And I'm gonna be lazy. I'm just gonna put another point with a straight dimension between them. Now, one thing that you might ask me to do is, Aline, this is a crazy 3D curve. It's not a straight line. How do you measure along the curve? Maybe you want to measure along the curve the distance, not a straight distance between 2 points. So there are a couple of solutions that you have. One is to use reference points. Because one thing about reference points, you can specify the distance along the path. Isn't that cool? And also, when you use a reference point like this, you can actually use the ability to create almost like a pattern of reference points. So extremely, extremely useful, right? It's a different thing to say 500 measure the long, it's kind of the length of the segment of the rope versus simply going to a 3D sketch and putting a point here and measuring the length this way, from here to here being, let's say, 500. What would be the other option, by the way, instead of using this? You know what would be nice if you would be able to use a spline. So imagine a spline like this, because you can add a dimension defining the length of the spline, right? So how can I get this spline to match this guy? It's not that easy. So one thing that I can do is run a convert entity. So this spline is pretty much the equivalent of the conversion of this, and then hope that the converted spline can accept a dimension. And notice it doesn't do that. That's a crazy limitation, unfortunately, when you have these on edge conditions. What other options do I have for this spline? Other than deleting the on edge, let's delete that and see what happens. Let's see if it becomes a regular spline that we can try to apply some type of dimensions to, but as you can imagine, that kind of defeats the purpose. So it's still, let's see if we can convert it to a spline, right? So crazy limitations. If you want, if somebody has a computer handy, maybe write an enhancement request to allow splines that are obtained from the convert entity command to apply dimension to. Wouldn't that be cool? That would be so nice. So pretty much I put a dimension on this and I say I use the endpoint as the reference. Okay, so I have this point here. Let's call it, I'm going to put this dimension, I'm going to call it horizontal, HOR. And allow me to share with you one more limitation. If you try to put the face curve in the same sketch as the point, you can't. Why? Well, because nobody probably voted on that enhancement request. So if I'm trying to do now the face curve on this face, going through this point, notice I cannot select the point. It has to be on a separate sketch. So remember that because a lot of people are trying things and they fail and they stop. So if you're not sure, come to us and we're going to look for a workaround. And also we're going to talk to SOLIDWORKS to promote your enhancement requests. Okay, so let's call this horizontal position. So this is the other point. Okay, ready to do the face curve. So it's going to go through on this face, going through this point, correct? And I need only the cyan one. I don't need the pink one. Beautiful. Okay, so we created these two curves. Wouldn't be a bad idea maybe to color them. So let's pick this guy and apply a color. Let's use orange for the vertical. And let's use, let's call this horizontal path. And let's make this a different color. I don't know, pink. So it's clear we have the two directions. Okay, now let's see, let's create sweeps. So sweep, circular profile, 50 millimeter diameter. I'm gonna pick up this guy. That's the first one. Let's call this one vertical rope. And let's do the same thing for this guy. So sweep, circular profile, 50 millimeter. And that is the horizontal rope. Now you might say, okay, Aline, why didn't you do the first one and then do a pattern and then do this guy and do another pattern? Okay, let's see, let's try that. So if I leave only this guy here, and at this point I can actually hide the boundary surface, right? Remember with tab hides, shift tabs brings back. So tab hides the surface body. So this is the rope. Let me hide the two little sketches for now. Okay, this is the rope. We're gonna call a variable pattern, calling this rope as the feature. And you see what it says here, like you cannot even select it. As long as this feature is not already attached to something else, it's not going to allow you to do that. One of the things that variable pattern cannot do at this point is create individual bodies. So anything that you can add, either you add to an existing body or you remove from an existing body. So there you go. We are stuck, apparently. We cannot do variable patterns. So what we need to do before this was created is to build some type of geometry. And sometimes I do dummy bodies. In this case, I'm actually going to take advantage of the fact that I need the perimeter anyway for the rope, right? So let's start with the swept feature, 50 millimeter diameter. Notice I don't have a sketch right now. So what I'm going to do instead, I'm going to turn on the selection manager and I'm going to try to select all these edges of the surface body. Notice the option to go closed loop on the outside. How cool is that? There you go. Now I can hide this and you can see the result. I already have a body. Now, in order for the variable pattern to work, is when I do the next sweep, let's call this perimeter. Sorry. Right? The moment I put the next one in, I have to make sure that this is actually merged to the other one. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So I need to make sure that the result is still going to stay as one body. And same thing for the horizontal one. So that's the first major limitation. If anybody who's attending this webinar is from SolidWorks, this might be something to consider to allow us to have variable pattern that can work with discrete bodies. There is really shouldn't be any reason why not. Okay, so this is the only work I'm doing. Anything from here on is going to be done by SolidWorks. So let's try variable pattern. What do I want to pattern? Let's start with the vertical one. I want this guy to be patterned. Okay, good. What sketches is this being based on? Well, it's based on the vertical position and the vertical path, right? So I need these two to be patterned. I'm not sure if I really need a vertical path because really it's part of the vertical rope in a way, but let's leave it there. Okay, create a table. Okay, so what's the only dimension I would care about? This one. Okay, how many do we need? I don't know, let's type here 10. Can notice the cool thing here, I can add 10 extra rows. And let's say we're gonna keep the same dimension of 500 millimeter from one to the next. So the next one is gonna be 1000. By the way, when I said from one to the next, that was wrong because as I mentioned earlier, there is really no relationship between one instance and the other. What I'm asking SolidWorks to do, allow me to cancel this. I want to show you what I'm asking it to do. I'm asking it to take this blueprint, if you want, of a rope, and then put another point, but this time at 1000 millimeter, right? Find the face curve and create the swept feature, and then go to 1500 millimeter and do the same thing, and then go to 2000 millimeter and do the same thing. So all these are going to be independent of each other. Okay, so let's go back to 500. So instead of me doing all this manually, I'm going to ask SolidWorks to do it for me. So variable pattern. So what do I want? I want this guy to be patterned, and the sketches, the two sketches that we mentioned before. You know, let's try only one sketch. Let's try only vertical position. See if it works. Let's create a pattern. First of all, I want to add this dimension to the table, and let's add 10 more rows. Oh, sorry, not Excel, bad click. So click this button, add instances. Okay. And now I'm going to type for the next one is like creating a brand new sketch where the dimension is going to be 1000. And if you are familiar with the functionality of Excel, you can select these two columns, pick up this corner and drag down. So SolidWorks is going to index everything going forward. Okay. Let's hit update preview and see if we're going to get a result with all this new sweeps being created. One thing that I want to point out is that this is time consuming, right? So it will take you a certain amount of time to draw all those points, all those lines, all those sweeps. And the waiting time increases dramatically if you ask SolidWorks to create things that are impossible. Because as you know, SolidWorks has to fail only that instance while still validating all the other ones. So if by any chance I didn't really pay attention, which I didn't, and the last one was really outside of the domain that is possible to create, this preview is going to take a long time. So hopefully we didn't kill this webinar by doing that. Let's see how long it's going to take. And in the meantime, I'm going to take a look also at your questions. So you see SolidWorks is busy. Yeah, Salahedin mentioned the fact that I didn't mention that I'm a champion. Okay, yes, it's true. Darcy, it's not crazy if you're working on another piece of software. Okay, maybe you want to provide a bit more information about that. Okay. Manish says, I don't see variable pattern feature in SOLIDWORKS 2019. No, it should be there, but you have to be inside the part. So if you are inside the part, it should be there. If not, like, oh, you found it. Okay. Yeah, if you're in assembly mode, there is no variable pattern in 2019 in assembly mode. And I don't see other questions right now. And looks like I went past that space. If you want to just stand up and move your legs a little bit, based on my experience, this still should be manageable in the time that we have available. I'm just looking right now. Hopefully it's not going to take more than another minute. Okay, so we have a note from Darcy that the patterning reference geometry has been core functionality of one of the grandparents of SOLIDWORKS, Pro-E. So that is good to know. Absolutely. Okay. Let's see what we can do here. Actually, one thing that I can do is start. You know what? I promise SOLIDWORKS I'm going to give it a minute. So let's see. If it doesn't finish in the next 10 seconds, I will load this again. Let's see, kind of. Oh. And of course, I'm lying when I say I'm going to crush it right away. Let's take a look at what SOLIDWORKS is doing. So you can see here it's using a full core. What we can get out of this, I guess another takeaway is to show this to the SOLIDWORKS R&D team to find out why is this so inefficient, right, in computing this impossible positions. It takes actually a long time, as you can see here. So allow me to crush SOLIDWORKS. I'm gonna just show you the result. By the way, that was not a hang. As you probably saw at 3D Experience World in the video, in the end, it computes impossible positions. It's just that on my little laptop, it takes a bit longer than what we would expect. Okay, so let's take a look at that variable pattern that we created. I'm really curious how many positions I should have had. So if you're looking at this one, looks like I put only 8, should be only 8, and I believe I put 10. So 2 of them were outside of the space that I have available. And for kicks, if you want, I'll give you this file. You can try a few extra, and you're gonna see the result. Okay, so that's for this guy. And then I did the same thing for the other one. Now, again, what is the main advantage of using a variable pattern is the ease of use. So let's check how robust it is. Let's stress this boundary surface. So I have instant 3D on. Oh, not this sketch, but this one, orientation sketch. I'm just going to try to change a bunch of things. So let's change this angle. And you can see the rebuild wasn't that bad, right? It rebuilt the 2 patterns. It's not necessarily a champion on rebuild times. Just going to make this even smaller. Right, so you can see it worked. Let's try to make this a little bit longer. See how that works. Now, if you want to save time, obviously we change all those 3 dimensions directly without using instant 3D, and then you get the job done. So in this case, it actually made sense. It didn't add extra lines. And you might say, okay, how do I address that? Well, the way you address it is you overbuild it. So in this case, if I'm looking at the preview, I'm getting up to here. Now, in the previous example, I would have now to add those things manually myself, right? And here is simply saying, okay, let's add 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5. Let's add 5 extra. And then let's pick up the last two values in here and pick up the corner, drag it down. Let's take a look at the preview. So if it is possible, if I didn't make another mistake, this would work well. So you can see the last one is very close to here, so maybe I don't need it. Let's keep it for now, okay? And click OK, and OK. So very fast updates, very fast revisions in a way, if you can think about that. And I'm pretty sure you guys can come with all kind of other ideas to further improve this, this technique, right? So for example, if I'm looking at this, I have 500 here. What's happening if I, from 500 on the original one, I go to 300? What do you guys think is going to happen if I change the first one? Do you think the other ones are going to change or not? Let's see what you're saying in the chat. Let's vote. How many people are thinking that if I change this to 300, the other ones are going to move? Yes, or if you disagree with this statement, say no. So Matthew says yes, they're going to move. Anybody's okay to say no? Chris says no. Okay. So let's see. I'm going to click somewhere else. Let's see the result. Lots of no's, a couple of yeses. Let's see. The answer is no. So all of you who said no, you won. And it kind of makes sense because remember what SOLIDWORKS does? It just copies, does the work again and again, again and again. There are no relations between the various elements. For example, here, I can pick up any of these guys and simply suppress it, right? And the other ones are still going to stay put because they are dimensioned. Let's take a look at the dimension for this one, for example. Notice they are dimensioned from the original thing. It's the same sketch that got copied again or recreated with a different dimension. So that is the main thing that you have to understand about these things. Now, Darcy is asking me, can you drive the dimensions with equations? Okay, so I'm going to do something very basic. I'm just going to add a constant here. So let's say A equal 3,250. Okay. And let's pick up this guy and see if I can make it equal to A. I don't think it should work. Let's actually turn off the instant 3D for a second. Okay. So let's see if it's going to allow me to use a global variable for that. And to my surprise, let's see. So it moved there and it's still linked to an equation, which is kind of crazy. How is that driven inside the table? Let's examine that. There you go. So you have the answer. Actually, Darcy, thank you very much for this question because I wasn't aware of this functionality. I didn't know that you can add equations. The way I would drive it usually it's with an Excel table because I can have equation in my Excel table and simply import it in the pattern. That would be even better if you would be able to link the Excel table to the feature, which currently is not possible. Excellent question, Darcy. Okay, so you saw some of the advantages. Let's see what other major advantage we have. I can double click directly on the top name, on the top feature in order to see the dimensions. Now, one thing that again, maybe we can submit as an enhancement request is for SOLIDWORKS to better space them or to give us a chance to turn them to ordinate dimensions or something like that. That's going to make it easier for us to control this. But I'm going to say this is pretty elegant and can be better for sure. But if I were the one who created something like this, maybe as a template for further nets, I would create a big net with quite a few elements. I would space these dimensions nicely out. And if anybody needs to change something, you'll simply go here. Okay, I want this to be 750. And there you go. You just change the ones that you want. I'm going to say that's pretty unique in the SOLIDWORKS, among the SOLIDWORKS pattern, the ability to see everything directly from there. Looking at the time, let's take a couple takeaway. So I know that you need a few more information about this. First of all, summary, best practices. Make sure that any pattern feature affects an existing body. Either you merge to a body if you use a boss, like a sweep boss, an extrude boss, or any other type of boss, or you cut from an existing body. Otherwise, it will not work, okay? Either it will, if it's the first entity, is not going to allow you to do it, or it will suppress the instances that cannot be merged to the body. Name your dimensions. This is actually a good practice, not only for patterns, but especially for patterns. Name the important dimensions that you know are going to be part of the pattern. Name the features, name the sketches. This is actually quite interesting. As I was preparing for 3D Experience World, I got to a point where I wasn't able to select the dimensions. So I would go to, let me go up to here. Imagine I was trying to run this variable pattern. And let's say I selected this guy over here and I selected the sketch. And I wasn't able to click on this dimension to add it to the pattern. So I create pattern, try to click on this, and it was not selectable like it is right now. And I found out that it was because the template, SOLIDWORKS template that I used at that point was not having the annotation view to which that dimension was part of activated or shown. So I hope you guys know that when you add dimensions and nodes and other things, they are automatically assigned to certain annotation views. And if you find out, not only here, but in other situations in SOLIDWORKS, you cannot click on a dimension, just make sure that this annotation view is turned on to show, and sometimes you might need to activate. Okay, so just be aware of that. This is actually a great tip that can be used even outside of the topic of this presentation. Take advantage of the power of Excel. So once you figure out roughly where the dimensions are going to be, what is the logic to add the dimensions, you can use the full power of Excel with if statements, with lookup tables, lookup formulas, VLOOKUPs, things like that, to make your life very, very easy. So allow Excel to make the hard decisions and simply import the table inside SOLIDWORKS. Okay. Now, let's take a look at a couple of ways to enhance this pattern functionality. Feel free to take a screenshot of this, of the next couple of slides. The first thing I would like to have is ability to create multi-bodies. Like this net, why can I not create those as independent rows? Ability to pattern surface features. You cannot pattern surface bodies. You cannot pattern surface features. It's crazy. Allow the table to actually be linked to the pattern. Wouldn't that be nice? Oh, this would be huge. Imagine all those planes that we created in the Sol. What if I want the planes to be visible? What if I want the sketches, the pattern to be visible? That's not possible. I'm pretty sure Darcy is going to say, I can do it in another software. Cannot currently be used as a pattern-driven pattern. So you might use this to put all different locations, and then you simply want in the assembly to populate all of those with nuts and bolts. Currently, you can't. Okay, and these are the SPRs that are issued in regards to what you saw earlier. I'm going to leave this for, let's say, another 10 seconds. If you want to take a screenshot, please vote on them. So most of the SPRs, enhancement requests or bugs, have one vote, the person who actually created the SPR. If you just add more vote, another person says, yes, this affects me too, you automatically push that SPR in the top 10%. If you add 2 more votes, you probably are in the stratosphere, in the first 1%. So that change is going to happen automatically. Okay, or not automatically. The changes of SOLIDWORKS to pay attention to that enhancement request are going to increase exponentially. So there are 5 that I have here. If you discover others that would be relevant to variable patterns, please email me, and I'm more than happy to add my vote to those. One more thing I want to show you, because we're thinking about automation, right? So if you attended my other webinars, you know that one of my best friends, it's Artem Taturevich. We partner a lot on finding solutions to my clients and to the SOLIDWORKS community in general. So what if I wanted to do all this with one feature? Maybe using the face curves. Okay, so let's suppress everything that we have here. Show the boundary feature. And let's create the face curve as one sketch. So surfaces, face curve. How many ropes do we want? You guys tell me. What about 10 by 10? Okay, maybe on the blue direction, let's go to 15. Now, the cool thing about face curves is that they are spaced in a way that takes in account the complexity of the curvature and many other things. But anyway, let's say that's the result that we want in the end. Okay, so I'm going to get out of the sketch. Let's hide the body, the surface body, and take a look at this 3D sketch. Currently, I cannot use this for a sweep, right? So if I try to use this sketch for a circular profile of 50 millimeter, and I click on this, it automatically turns on the selection manager. So even if I say, you know what, I would like all these things, kind of select all of them, it doesn't allow me to do that, right? Select a continuous group of entities. So I ask Artem, can you give me an enhanced swept feature? Okay, let's see what Artem gave us here. So I'm going to add an add-in that you can download yourself if you find it interesting. He's actually adding lots of extra tools to this add-in. And let's say the radius is going to be 25 millimeter. For some reason, this is radius. And then I'm selecting this guy as the entity that's going to be inserted. Let's click OK. Let's see the result. Okay, now this is a feature in the tree. So that tells me that has a couple of properties. Number one, if I change the orientation sketch, right? So let's try to do that. Let's make this visible. Maybe turning on Instant 3D, clicking on this and do something crazy. I don't know, let's make this bigger. It worked. Obviously it works because face curves are smart enough to maintain their position. Okay, let's do a twist, crazy twist. Trying to make this fail. No, it still works. Okay, let's change the 3D sketch completely. I'm gonna go to this 3D sketch. I'm gonna wipe out all these things. Let's show again the surface and create a brand new set of face curves. So instead of 15 by 10, let's go 20 by 15. Okay, and then get out of the sketch. What's going to happen? Well, this is Artem, right? So you shouldn't be surprised that whatever he does works tremendously well. Okay, now obviously the result here is not the strict number of bodies, it's actually one body. So depending on what you need to do, we might need to ask him to improve this, maybe create individual bodies instead of one set, but it's pretty cool. The other thing that he has here is the ability to add a custom property to as a metadata. So add length custom property. Are you curious how much rope is being used here? Wouldn't that be interesting to know? So let's see if we have anything that, I don't know. Oh, sorry, I think that's actually to the body itself, right? So if I'm going here to add weldment, so all these are going to be identified as weldments, and you want a cut list with all the lengths of the ropes. Let's take a look at one of them. So, oh, I might need to edit this again. Swept sketch. Because there wasn't a cut list item before to apply the property to, right? So let's just gonna be careful to do it one more time. Okay, click OK. And let's take a look if that information is there. By the way, this was part of the SOLIDWORKS Power User challenges, so you can still find all the solution on the SOLIDWORKS forum, right? So you can see here the length. If I'm looking at the cut list table, you can see I have the lengths for all the ropes, quantities for everything. Works pretty well. Okay, let's see what other questions we have there. Can you drive dimension? Darcy is asking another one. Is your offer to update SPRs available for other ideas? Darcy, one thing that you can do, you can actually post it in a place where all of us, all the users can see those ideas. If you already have a list, absolutely send it to me. If you would like me to publish it to my clients that are affected by these SPRs, absolutely, I can do that. So let me put my email address. Oh, it's right here, alin.vercato@javelin-tech.com. Feel free to send me any ideas you have. Okay, last chance to ask questions. So, oh, there is also Q&A. Okay. Ishvan is asking, is it available for 2020 for assemblies? The answer is no, as far as I know. So we can actually test that even in 2021. So if I open a brand new assembly, let's insert this into an assembly. So looking at the type of patterns that are available in the assembly, there is no such thing as variable pattern at this time. Would be nice to have it, I'm pretty sure, but currently it's not there. Okay, last chance to ask questions before I say thank you very much for attending this. I'm going to leave this here, by the way, in case you need more free training articles, free videos. They are all there. And also, one thing that I want to make sure that you also know, I repeat it in the beginning, but if you encounter any challenge, anything that slows you down, you or your team, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We'll take a look. We try to learn. You're going to have to teach us, actually, how you are using SOLIDWORKS. Because one thing we learned in the last 20 years of using SOLIDWORKS is that nobody should presume that the user does something wrong. Most likely you already spent weeks, months, or years perfecting your workflow, and there is always a reason why you do things a certain way. So let's sit down together to find out if there are no better ways to get the end result. Okay, so just don't hesitate to reach out to us. And I see already about 10% of you already benefited from this type of consulting. So you know what I'm talking about. For the rest, just give us a chance. Okay, one more question. Is it possible to control custom properties with an Excel file? The answer is yes, you can certainly do that. So if you take our custom property courses, we're going to share everything about how to do that. So you can use either the design table for that. That's the old technology that's available. There are a few other ways to link design table to custom properties. You can also use text files. So you can link text files to global variables, for example. And a global variable or a custom property are pretty much the same thing for many of the tools in SOLIDWORKS. John is asking, is the net example downloadable? Yes, let me show you actually how to get it right away to it. You can write an email and I'll send you the example. But if you go to forum.solidworks.com, I'm just gonna log in as myself. You don't have to log in to find this information. And you simply are going to look for SWPUC. So this is a group of challenges that we run regularly, SOLIDWORKS Power User Challenges. So over here, you have access to all the SOLIDWORKS Power User challenges. So over here, you can see every crazy things that your mind would say are impossible to do in SOLIDWORKS, that when we put our minds together with power users all over the world, we found solutions. So the one I'm talking about, let's go at the end. I think it's one of the last ones. Macro sweep feature. There you go. So I'm just going to put this in the chat if you guys want to go there. And if you go in here, you can see the model. You can see all kinds of solutions provided by users, but also you're going to see the result. So at the end, the macro is, and how to get to the macro, it's included right there. Okay, so just use the link that I gave you. It's going to take you there. Okay. So Darcy, if you cannot upvote the options, reach out to your VAR. So Javelin or Hawkridge or whoever is your VAR, give them the list of SPRs and ask them to add you to the notification list of those SPRs. So for enhancement requests, you can vote. For bugs, you can't. Usually that's how it goes. So just make sure you reach out to us, whoever company sold you SOLIDWORKS or you are on the subscription with, and they should be able to help you. And also see if something is wrong with your customer portal if you cannot vote even for ERs. Okay, let's see, last questions. Looks like we answered all the questions. I want to thank you one last time very much for your attention, and don't be strangers. Come back to us with challenges. Hopefully we're gonna have a chance to spend a lot of time together and find solutions to other crazy problems that you guys encounter. Thank you very much. Have a great day.